I never thought I'd be the one to uncover a family secret so dark, so heavy, that it would make me question everything I knew about my own father, the man I looked up to as my rock, my hero. But here I am, sitting on the weathered porch of our old crab shack by the Savannah coast, holding a tattered journal that's turned my world upside down, revealing a truth my dad buried for decades. A truth that's left me wondering if I ever really knew him at all, and if the family I thought I belonged to was built on a lie. If you've ever felt like the ground beneath you just vanished, or if you've discovered a secret that made you question your entire life, then you're going to want to stick with me for this story. It's raw, it's heartbreaking, and it's got me torn between love and betrayal, between holding on and letting go. I'm pouring my soul out here, hoping that by sharing this, I can make sense of the pain, or at least find a way to live with it. So, grab a seat, maybe something to drink, and let's dive into this messy, emotional journey together, because I'm still trying to figure out how a hidden past can shatter everything you thought was real. I guess I should start at the beginning, or at least where I first felt the undercurrent of something off in my family, even if I didn't have a name for it back then. I grew up in a small coastal town just outside Savannah, Georgia, where the air always smelled like salt and marsh grass, and the sound of waves crashing against the shore was a constant lullaby. Our family owned a little crab shack called Henry's Catch, named after my dad, a weathered, quiet man with calloused hands and a face lined from years under the sun. The shack wasn't much, just a rickety wooden building with peeling blue paint, a few picnic tables out front, and a neon sign that flickered more than it glowed. But it was ours, a place where locals and tourists alike came for steamed crabs, hush puppies, and Dad's secret spice blend. My mom, a warm but overworked woman named Clara, handled the books and the front counter, while Dad did the heavy lifting, hauling in fresh catch every morning from the docks. I'm their only child, born in the early 90s, and growing up, that shack was my whole world. I'd spend hours there after school, wiping down tables, sneaking bits of cornbread, watching the seagulls circle overhead, while Dad taught me how to crack open a crab just right. He wasn't a man of many words, but when he spoke, it felt like gospel, lessons about hard work, loyalty, family. I idolized him, saw him as this unbreakable force, someone who'd built a life for us out of nothing but grit and determination. But even as a kid, I sensed there was something he wasn't saying, a shadow behind his tired eyes, a weight he carried that no amount of laughter or cold beer could lift. Looking back, there were hints of that shadow everywhere, little cracks in the perfect picture I'd painted of our family, though I didn't piece them together until much later. Dad would get these faraway looks sometimes, staring out at the ocean from the shack's porch, his hands gripping the railing like he was holding on to something he couldn't let go of. Mom would catch him in those moments and quickly change the subject, her voice a little too bright, like she was trying to pull him back from wherever his mind had wandered. I'd ask questions as kids do. Why does Dad look sad sometimes? Why doesn't he talk about his life before he met Mom? And I'd get vague answers, shrugs, or a quick, he's just tired, sweetie. I accepted it back then, because what else could I do? I was just a kid, trusting that my parents had it all figured out, that the life we had, crab boils on Friday nights, Sunday drives along the coast, Mom's off-key singing in the kitchen, was all there was to know. But there was always this nagging feeling, this quiet sense that I didn't quite fit, like I was missing a piece of the puzzle that everyone else could see. I'd lie awake in my tiny bedroom, listening to the creak of the house and the distant roar of the tide, wondering why I felt like an outsider in my own family, even when I was surrounded by love. As I got older, into my teens, that feeling only grew, though I buried it under the chaos of high school and part-time shifts at the shack. I was a lanky, awkward kid, more interested in sketching the marshlands in my notebook than in sports or parties, and I often felt like I didn't belong, not just at school, but at home too. Dad was proud of the business, always talking about how I'd take over one day, how it was our legacy, but I didn't feel that pull. I wanted to go to art school, to get out of this small town, to make something of myself beyond the smell of fish and the sticky heat of summer. When I told him that, at 17, sitting on a crate behind the shack after a long day, I saw something flicker in his eyes, disappointment, maybe, or fear. He didn't argue, just nodded slowly and said, "Do what you gotta do, kid," before walking away to clean the traps. I felt guilty for wanting more, for not being the son he envisioned carrying on his dream, but I also felt this strange relief, like I was breaking free from a mold I never fit into. Mom was more supportive, sneaking me art supplies when she could afford it, whispering that I should chase my passion. But even her encouragement felt tinged with something unspoken, a nervousness I couldn't place, like she was worried about what my leaving might unearth. The years rolled on, and I did leave, heading to Atlanta for college on a partial scholarship, studying graphic design while working odd jobs to pay the bills. I'd come back to Savannah for holidays, pulling into the gravel lot of Henry's Catch, the familiar scent of boiled seafood hitting me like a wave of nostalgia. But each visit felt heavier, the distance between me and Dad growing, not just in miles, but in understanding. He'd ask about school, about my life, but his questions felt forced, like he was checking a box rather than really wanting to know. Mom would hover, trying to bridge the gap with small talk about the shack's latest specials or the neighbor's new boat. But I could see the strain in her smile, the way her eyes darted to Dad, as if waiting for something to break. I started to notice how they never talked about the past, not their early years together, not Dad's life before Mom, nothing beyond the day I was born. It was like our family history started with me, everything before erased, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a reason for that silence, a reason they wouldn't look me in the eye when I asked about old family stories. I'd sit at the picnic tables outside the shack, watching the sunset paint the marsh in oranges and pinks, and I'd wonder what they were hiding, why the air always felt thick with secrets I wasn't allowed to touch. Fast forward to now, I'm 32, living back in the area after a string of freelance design gigs didn't pan out the way I'd hoped. I'm helping out at the shack again, not because I want to, but because Mom's health isn't what it used to be, and Dad can't handle it all on his own anymore. The place looks more worn than ever, the roof sagging, the tables wobbly, but it still draws a crowd on weekends, folks looking for a taste of the coast. On their most days, cracking crabs, pouring sweet tea, feeling like I've stepped back into a life I thought I'd left behind. Dad and I work side by side, but there's this wall between us, built of years of unspoken words and missed chances. He's grayer now, slower, his hands trembling sometimes as he lifts a pot, and I see the toll the years have taken, not just on his body, but on whatever he's been carrying inside. I've caught him staring at me lately, this odd mix of sadness and guilt in his eyes, and it makes my stomach twist. I want to ask what's wrong, want to demand answers for the questions I've held on to since I was a kid, but every time I open my mouth, the words stick in my throat. Maybe I'm scared of what I'll hear, scared that the truth will be worse than the wondering. Here's where everything changed, where the secret I'd always sensed finally clawed its way to the surface, leaving me reeling. A few weeks ago, I was cleaning out the storage shed behind the shack, a cramped, musty space filled with old fishing gear, broken chairs, and boxes of junk we've accumulated over the years. Mom asked me to sort through it, see what could be salvaged or tossed, since they're thinking about selling the business soon. I was knee-deep in cobwebs, pulling out a box labeled Henry's Stuff, in faded marker, when I found it. A small, leather-bound journal, the kind with a strap to keep it closed, tucked under a pile of yellowed receipts. It looked personal, out of place among the rusty tools and faded menus, and my curiosity got the better of me. I sat on an overturned bucket, the humid air sticking to my skin, and opened it, not expecting much, maybe some old notes about crab prices or boat repairs. But what I found instead stopped my heart cold. The pages were filled with Dad's handwriting, jagged and uneven, entries dating back to the late 80s, before I was born, before he even met Mom. And in those pages, he wrote about a life I never knew he had, a life with another woman, a child, a son he left behind when he walked away to start over in Savannah. Reading those words, my hands shaking, the shed closing in around me, I felt like the world tilted. Dad had a son, my half-brother, named Caleb, born when Dad was barely 20, back when he lived in Charleston. From what I could piece together, the relationship with Caleb's mom fell apart. Money troubles, fights, young love that couldn't survive the strain, and Dad made a choice. He wrote about how he couldn't handle the responsibility, how he felt trapped, how he left them with nothing but a few $100 and a promise to come back that he never kept. He described the guilt eating at him, the nights he'd wake up hearing a baby cry in his dreams, but he justified it to himself, saying he needed a fresh start, a chance to be better. That's when he moved to Savannah, met Mom, built the shack, had me. He wrote that he buried that past, swore never to tell anyone, not even Mom, because he was ashamed, because he wanted to protect the new family he'd made. There were entries from after I was born, too, where he wrestled with whether to reach out to Caleb, to make amends, but he always stopped himself, afraid of what it would do to us, to me. The last entry, dated about 10 years ago, just said, I hope he's okay. I hope he doesn't hate me. I hope my boy never finds out what kind of man I am. I sat there for what felt like hours, the journal heavy in my lap, the sound of waves and seagulls distant, like I was underwater. My dad, the man I'd put on a pedestal, the one who taught me right from wrong, had abandoned a child, my brother, and kept it hidden my entire life. The betrayal cut so deep I couldn't breathe at first, this mix of anger and grief crashing over me. How could he do that? How could he look me in the eye every day, call me his son, and not tell me I had a sibling out there, someone who might have needed him, needed us? I thought about all the times I felt like I didn't fit, like there was a piece missing, and now I wondered if that was it. If some part of me sensed there was more to our family than I knew. I felt cheated, not just of the truth, but of a relationship I could have had, a brother I might have grown up with if Dad hadn't made that choice. And worse, I felt this sick guilt, like I was part of the reason he stayed silent, like my existence was the thing that kept him from going back. I haven't confronted him yet. I can't. Every time I see him now, behind the counter at the shack, wiping down the fryer or counting the till, I see a stranger. I see a man who ran from his mistakes, who built a life on a foundation of lies, who let shame dictate his choices. But I also see my dad, The guy who bandaged my scraped knees, who stood in the rain to fix a leak in the shack's roof, who always made sure I had enough, even when we were scraping by. I'm torn between rage and love, between wanting to scream at him for what he did and wanting to understand why he thought hiding it was the only way. I keep imagining what Caleb's life was like, growing up without a father, wondering if he ever looked for Dad, if he ever stood on a dock somewhere in Charleston, staring at the horizon, hoping for answers. I wonder if he looks like me, if he has Dad's quiet demeanor or the same crooked smile I inherited. The thought of him out there, a piece of my family I never knew, makes my chest ache with a longing I can't name. I've been carrying the journal with me, hidden in my bag, not sure what to do with it. I haven't told Mom either. She's already dealing with enough, her arthritis flaring up, her worry about the shack's future etched into every line on her face. I don't know if she'd be shocked, angry, or if she'd defend Dad, say he did what he had to do to protect us. I keep replaying my childhood through this new lens, seeing every distant look, every dodged question, as a sign of the secret he was guarding. I walk along the waterfront now, the marsh stretching out endlessly, the air thick with the scent of salt and decay, and I feel so lost. The crab shack, once my safe haven, feels like a lie too, a stage for a family that wasn't what it seemed. I sit on the porch at dusk, watching the neon sign flicker, and I wonder if I'll ever feel at home here again, or if this truth has stolen that from me forever. I'm wrestling with what comes next, with whether I can even look Dad in the eye without letting this spill out. Part of me wants to confront him, to demand answers. Did he ever try to find Caleb? Does he know where he is now? Why didn't he trust me with the truth? I want to know if keeping this secret was worth the weight it put on him, on us. But another part of me is terrified of what he'll say, of how it'll change things, of whether I'll lose the only family I've ever known. I think about searching for Caleb myself, digging through old records or social media, seeing if I can find a trace of him, but I don't know if that's my place, or if it would just open more wounds. I picture meeting him, standing face to face with a stranger who shares my blood, and I don't know if I'd feel connection or resentment, if I'd blame him for the secret or blame Dad for the separation. The uncertainty is eating me alive, keeping me up at night, making every creak of the house sound like a ghost from a past I didn't know I had. So, I'm turning to you, whoever's out there listening. I need your advice, your perspective, because I'm drowning in questions with no easy answers. If you've ever uncovered a family secret, if you've had to decide whether to confront someone you love or keep the peace, how did you handle it? Did you search for the missing pieces of your story, like a sibling you never knew? Or did you let the past stay buried? How do you forgive someone who hid something so big, who changed the way you see yourself, your family, your entire life? Should I talk to Dad, show him the journal, ask for the whole story, or should I protect what little stability we have left? And if I look for Caleb, am I risking more pain, or could finding him be the key to healing? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I'm reading every word, looking for a way through this mess. If this story hit you, if it's made you think about your own family secrets, hit that like button, share it with someone who might relate, and subscribe for more real, raw stories like this. I'm still here, still lost, still wondering if the truth can set us free, or if it'll just break us for good. Let's keep this conversation going. I need to know I'm not alone in this.